Hey everybody! For the two people that have been following the progress of my lathe project on my blog, I wanted to give an update. So this past weekend my dad came over and he helped me finish up the wiring. So this is a South Bend 10K lathe that I got on Craigslist, and the previous owner installed a 3-phase motor in it. And so I had to go and get a VFD that would convert the single-phase electricity in my house into 3-phase. And I also had to run a 220-volt line into this room. So yeah, right now I've got this cutoff switch. So if I cut that on, that provides power to my VFD. And then I can tighten up the belt and start it up. So yeah, that's a big improvement from having no power at all. So it's working really well. Haven't made anything with it yet. Just got it running yesterday. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. The motor down here was a little bit too long for the cabinet. And so it looks like maybe some C4 or thermite was used to blow the hole out the side of this cabinet, which I don't really care about. It doesn't hurt anything. It looks pretty ugly, but hey, it works. And this is a newer motor than originally came with the lathe. As I said, it's 3-phase. And on the end here is what's called an electromechanical brake. I never had heard of this before, but pretty much it means that when no power is applied to the motor, it can't spin. And I wanted to disable that so I could use it with the VFD. And the motor had a knob you could turn to temporarily disengage the brake. So my dad had the idea of just putting in a little sheet metal screw to keep that knob open all the time, so the brake is never engaged even when the power's off. And so far that seems to be working like a charm. The actual wiring wasn't as bad as I'd thought. My dad kind of showed me how to do it, and it's one of those things, having seen it done now, there's not a lot to it, honestly. So I ran 12 gauge wire to the shop, and 12 gauge wire can carry a max of 20 amps. So you need to put a 20 amp breaker in, which you can see here. And that's because the motor is only a 1.5 horsepower motor, so 20 amps is more than sufficient. You can see this yellow wire that runs through my basement project all the way over, and eventually comes down into the shop and into this cutoff box. This is all single phase coming in. At that point, the 220 volt circuit goes into the VFD, and that VFD outputs 3-phase that just runs down into the lathe motor. So it's pretty straightforward actually once you get it all together and see how it's done. So this lathe, it came with lots of goodies, which I was excited about. So it came with all of these little quick change tool holders. This is a cutoff tool it came with. Even came with all of the oil that you need. This is, I believe this is whey oil in here. There's spindle oil in here. And then it even came with a bottle of ketchup, which is really nice. This lathe, as you can see by the South Bend lubrication chart, several points require application of ketchup apparently. So it sounds kind of messy, but this is the official South Bend chart. I assume they know what they're doing. Yeah. I purchased this VFD from Dealers Electric. It's a Westinghouse Teco or Teco L510, and it's I believe it might be actually rated for a 2 horsepower motor, but it was the cheapest VFD that would work for a 1.5 horsepower motor, which I have. And apparently it has provisions where you can provide, external switches with low voltage signaling, so you can have a forward and reverse, emergency stop, and you could even connect a potentiometer and have a remote speed control. It also has this knob on the front, which I think you can program to do speed control as well. But there's another option, I think it's the E510, that has an option for an external braking resistor. That was a little bit more expensive and I didn't purchase that one, but the lathe seems to stop pretty quickly without the braking resistor, so I think this will suffice for what I need. Now originally this lathe was powered on 3-phase power, and so it had this switch right here that you could use to throw it into forward or reverse. Since I'm using the VFD, that handles the forward and reverse phase switching, so I don't need this switch anymore. I might end up using it just for the low voltage signaling and just still wired up to the VFD, but it was kind of cool seeing how this thing works. Literally, to switch the direction of a 3-phase motor, you just have to swap any two of the wires. So that's pretty much what this does. It's got this mechanism so that when it's off, of course, nothing's connected. For forward direction, these three are directly connected to these three, and then for reverse, you've got these three are connected to these three, but two of them are swapped, and so that would change the direction. With the VFD, it can swap the direction of the phases, or the order of the phases internally, so you don't need an external switch to do that. So there you have it. Now I can make my own custom PVC pipe fittings. This capability alone will pay for the lathe in no time.